Hello, inmates. It's Matches again. I know I'm your favorite, but we don't have to say that. We can just think it to ourselves. Um, um, the Scorch for this week that I won this week was the 221st Scorch. That's pretty impressive. And the prompt from Bones was, "Their head is so empty that when you tap it, it rings like a bell." Hello, everybody. It's one day later matches. When I was originally recording, I made a mistake. I know I'm as surprised as you that someone as epic as I am could have made a mistake, but no one's perfect, even though some of us get really close. My bad. The prompt is from Octo, not from Bones. So, I will properly credit Octo. This is Octo's prompt, not Bones' prompt. Alright, continuing on. And as I want to do, I took this as yet another opportunity for world building, mostly, because that's just my favorite thing to do. And specifically, sort of the main, I'm not going to call it the main thing, even though it, main thing in lowercase, is in the fantasy setting that I have created, there are dinosaurs. Why are there dinosaurs? It's because dinosaurs are freaking wicked. That's all you really need to know. However, I also took a little bit of inspiration from, I didn't want to just have them just be regular animal dinosaurs. That's cool, but it's not quite exciting enough for me. So I took a little bit of inspiration from, things like kaiju media, really, and I wanted to make them seem really fantastic and, fantastical. And so the creature described in this Scorch, it's mostly based off of creatures like Brachiosaurus and the like, the sauropods with the long necks. And I also took inspiration from things like hippos and rhinos because I just like the idea of a really super belligerent, aggressive herbivore. It makes sense ultimately because an herbivore doesn't need to be in perfect health in order to go find a tree to eat or something. So it makes sense that they would be more comfortable with being more aggressive, and also would be able to protect themselves from predators more often. Just all those nice little details, little fun details that it's fun to mix in when you're doing your thing. And I don't really have much else to talk about, so I'll just hop right into the story, I suppose. Kellic stared out in wonder and fear. The beast that was now approaching the southern border of the Elven Kingdom was truly a sight to behold. The savage lands to the south were ruled by gargantuan and vicious beasts called dinosaurs. It wasn't terribly uncommon for them to venture into the moors and forests of the southern reach of Elven territory. Of course, the particular specimen before him, several hundred feet away from the watchtower he was in, was far more of a rare sight. Its neck was long, reaching far from the thick and broad body like a particularly robust snake. He'd seen other animals like it occasionally, wandering out to eat from the tops of trees, but the specimen in front of him made all the others look like lizards. Before today, the largest he'd ever seen was probably 100 feet from tip to tail. This one could easily be multiple times the size of such a creature. You don't see many gargantosaurs this far north. Kellic flinched in surprise. The voice was that of Sildri. The elf was more than twice his age, but he hardly looked even a day older. Kellic had been so mesmerized by the monster, this gargantosaur, that he'd forgotten he wasn't alone on the watchtower. That name doesn't seem particularly creative. Kellic looked back toward the beast, taking note of its vibrant, colorful scales. A cascade of greens and blues. but marred by dozens of what looked like scars. Big ones. Sildred chuckled. Uncreative it may be, but you can't tell me it's inaccurate. A thought occurred to Kellic as his wonder gave way to good old-fashioned elven pragmatism. That thing could stomp a city flat and not even notice. Should we report it? Try to drive it away? Sildri shook his head. It won't come much farther north. I mean, look, the trees here don't even come up to its knees. A further inspection of the scene proved this observation true. It's an old one, looking for a place to die in peace, probably. Kellic grabbed his bow, more for comfort than practicality. Why not try to drive it south still anyway? It's a plant-eater, so it shouldn't be too difficult to persuade it south. Kellic had plenty of experience with hunting deer and the like, flighty animals. Sildri shook his head grimly and pointed to the menagerie of scars across the giant monster's body. They are empty-headed. If you tap the skull, I'm told it rings like a bell, even. But their belligerence knows no bounds. As if in response to the statement, the giant thing let out a bellow. Well, it's some kind of a sound, at least. The elves felt it more than heard it, an uncomfortable, deep rumbling that resonated in the chest, inflicting vertigo and nausea. Kellic gripped the railing of the watchtower to steady himself as his guts tied themselves in knots. The Gargantusaur slowly reared up, raising its gigantic front legs up and up, each foot bigger than most buildings. Kellic knew what came next, but nothing prepared him for the immense shockwave and the colossal boom that shook the very foundations of the mortal realm when the beast stomped. It would echo in his memory for the rest of his very long life. It blasted him off his feet and shook the guard tower, something fierce. By the time he recovered, the massive thing was stomping away, each mighty footstep sending flocks of birds flying and small tremors rumbling through the ground. What was that about? Kellic was still reeling a bit from the encounter. Sildri laughed heartily. My guess is a deer stepped on a twig nearby it or something. I told you, their belligerence knows no bounds. Kellic stared after the retreating form of the Gargantusaur for what seemed like hours before it was out of sight. And then a thought occurred to him. This was a terribly unpleasant experience, but he shuddered to imagine meeting the creature that saw fit to hunt the 500-foot-long reptile.
Hey, Octo here for Judge Comments. This week was really hard. I remember it was pretty difficult because they all hit me with such different things. Peishi hit me with this kind of horrifying thing about amnesia and emptying people's heads, and there's like a mob boss kind of vibe. It was scary. It was interesting. And Bones hit me with this really funny fantasy world extended universe thing that I know the people in. And it was a delight to read. You should definitely read it. But Matches won because I really enjoyed how he, wove in world building with his, exposition. I know generally the world that this is from. He does a lot of, really intense world building stuff, and I really enjoy it. And I just got a really big kick out of the prompt phrase, I guess you could say, being applied to something that is not a real-life human, because the other two went for human, as you would, consider. But applying it to this moron, giant dinosaur thing was just amazing. It was so funny, in, a really abstract kind of way. And it was original. It was refreshing, you could say. And I just also don't want to meet whatever eats those things. They're so big and dumb. And yet something hunts them, and I'm afraid of that something. But yeah, Matches definitely won this week because his was just delightful. Octo out.
Yeah, that's just a fun little encounter with a fantastical creature, I thought it was fun. I'm glad that it won. I was honestly not expecting to win that one. I'm not expecting to win basically any time that I submit a Scorch, but here I am. All right, now if you would give me a second to figure out what I even said for my next, what I even said when I made my prompt. I wish I remember these things, but joke's on you, I don't remember anything. Uh, is it this one? Haha. Oh, yeah, here. I got it. My prompt was, wow, I'm impressed. I've never heard anyone be that wrong before. I mean, nothing you said was right. I mean, that's just something I've said to people in real life. Unironically, I've said that. So I don't really have much inspiration for my prompt other than it's. I was going to say it's part of my daily vocabulary, but it's not quite my daily vocabulary, all right? It's only part of my weekly vocabulary. All right, well, I'm going to. Well, I was going to say I was going to hand it off to the judge if they saw fit to make any comments, but that might be edited earlier into the episode, so thank you, Judge, if you said anything. But, yeah, I guess I'll just end it there. Keep that fire burning, inmates. I'll talk to you at some point in the future. I don't actually keep track of my wins anyway. Bye.
The Cellblock Scorch is a production of Stellacore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. We can be reached at thestellacore@gmail.com through comments on your podcast platform of choice, our Instagram, Stella_core, and at our YouTube, also called Stellacore. Feel free to check out our other productions on our YouTube channel or our cosplays on Instagram. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon, linked in the show notes. There, you can access the winning Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to all of the Scorch submissions.